May 13, 2026. NPR reports that the Trump administration is suspending a requirement that would have forced foreign fans from World Cup qualifying nations to post bonds, in some cases as much as $15,000, to enter the United States. The detail most people missed was buried in the word suspending. The policy already existed. It had to be paused, and the country where it existed was the country FIFA had chosen to anchor the largest tournament in its history. FIFA did not write that rule. FIFA could not repeal it. And for a brief window, FIFA had no public answer for why a fan in Lagos or São Paulo might need to wire $15,000 to a U.S. government account just to watch a group stage match. To understand how FIFA arrived at that moment, you have to look at what 2026 was designed to be. 48 teams, up from 32. 3 host nations, 16 host cities, a tournament structure that, according to FIFA's own projections, cited by Business Insider, was on track to be the most profitable in the organization's history. The commercial design was aggressive, tiered ticketing, dynamic pricing on resale. Business Insider modeled the cost of following one team from group stage to final and arrived at a figure north of $30,000 per fan. Sponsors lined up behind that figure. Broadcast rights split across Peacock for English-language coverage, Telemundo on the Spanish side, and a parallel content ecosystem on Apple, including the return of the After the Whistle podcast. Beer companies watching U.S. domestic sales slide through 2025 treated the summer as what one industry analyst, quoted in Business Insider, called a make-or-break marketing window. None of this was hidden. FIFA had marketed 2026 for years as the most globally inclusive World Cup ever staged. What sat under that marketing was a quieter assumption, one that never appeared in a press release, that fans from FIFA's 211 member associations could actually enter the host country. That assumption was not written into any host agreement that has ever been made public. It didn't need to be, until it did. The first cracks did not come from the stadiums. They came from the parts of the system FIFA does not control. Through the spring of 2026, reporting from multiple U.S. outlets described visa wait times in several qualifying nations, stretching past the dates of the matches themselves. A father in Lagos who had been saving for 2 years to take his son to a group stage match might check his appointment date and find it scheduled for after the tournament ended. This was not, by itself, a FIFA decision. But every refused fan was a seat FIFA had counted on selling. Then came a public health layer. The Hill reported on May 28th that the United States, Mexico, and Canada were rolling out coordinated Ebola-related screening measures at points of entry ahead of the tournament. Then came the climate problem. An NPR analysis published on June 4th found that more than 1 in 3 World Cup matches faced what the outlet described as dangerous heat risk at host venues, with Miami flagged among the most exposed. And underneath all of it, inside the administration, a bond requirement had already been drafted into U.S. policy, the same requirement NPR would later report was being suspended. The draft existed before the suspension, which means at some point it had been written by people who did not have to consult Zurich. Step back to 2018. FIFA had a choice. The bid in front of them was a unified North American proposal, the United States, Mexico, and Canada, competing against Morocco. FIFA chose North America. They chose scale. They chose the United States as the financial center of gravity. What is not in any publicly available host agreement, and what FIFA has never claimed it negotiated, is control over the host nation's border policy. The most powerful sports body on earth signed contracts about pitches, broadcast feeds, sponsor activations, and fan zone exclusivity. It did not sign anything that determined who would be let into the country. So when reporting surfaced in the spring of 2026 about the bond requirement, The figure cited by NPR went as high as $15,000 per foreign fan from qualifying nations. FIFA had no clause to invoke. There is no clean record, at least not yet, of internal FIFA conversations about that moment. What is on the record is the BBC's reporting on May 27th that the New York and New Jersey attorneys general had launched a formal investigation into the organization's ticket pricing. Two American state-level legal authorities taking aim at a Swiss governing body over a tournament whose entry rules were being set by a third party neither of them controlled either. The administration eventually suspended the bond requirement. Suspension is not repeal. What was suspended once can return. And the organization that fines players for untucked shirts, that controls broadcast rights down to the pixel, that governs the sport in 211 countries, had publicly demonstrated that its most profitable tournament in history depended on a policy memo. It had no authority to read, let alone change. The damage did not wait for kickoff. The investigation in New York and New Jersey was one of several pressures that arrived in parallel. In Dallas, a local artist filed suit against FIFA after a public mural, a large painted whale that, according to local reporting, had become a recognizable piece of neighborhood iconography, was painted over during preparations tied to the tournament. The lawsuit was reported on June 2nd. Whether FIFA itself ordered the removal or whether a host city contractor did is part of what the court will have to decide. What it illustrates either way is the contractual reach of the tournament into spaces that were never asked. In Miami, the NPR analysis warning of dangerous heat risk did not disappear because the schedule was already set. In New York, transit officials told reporters they were preparing for as many as 100,000 additional travelers per day across the MTA system during the matches, an infrastructure load financed not by FIFA, but by fares, taxes, and the agency's existing capital budget. FIFA had also finalized, by late May, training base assignments placing 39 of the participating teams in U.S. cities. Each one of those cities was now absorbing logistics, security, and crowd costs that the tournament generated and the host paid for. The tournament was still on track to be the most profitable in FIFA's history. What had shifted, quietly, was the distribution of who was funding that profitability. Foreign fans, priced and policied out, host cities, absorbing the throughput, local artists, in at least one documented case, watching public space get repainted without their consent, state taxpayers, picking up the infrastructure bill. FIFA was founded on May 21, 1904, in a back room in Paris by representatives of 7 European football associations. 122 years later, its most valuable tournament sits inside a single country on a host agreement it cannot rewrite, governed by border rules it did not draft. The bond proposal was suspended. The structure that produced it was not. FIFA does not host the World Cup. Host nations do. Every promise FIFA makes to a Nigerian fan, a Japanese fan, a Brazilian fan, depends on a government FIFA does not vote in and cannot recall. The next host cycle is already in motion. Saudi Arabia in 2034. A 2030 tournament spread across 3 continents and multiple jurisdictions. Each one is a new border. Each one is a new policy memo nobody in Zurich will see until it is already written. The game is only as global as the borders allow it to be. This is Redacted Chapter.